Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to our pre-budget meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is currently, thank you very much, it's currently 9 a.m. I would like to confirm that we do have quorum, as well as we have our CAO clerk and members of the senior management team and staff here and present today. I'd like to continue to advise the public that we do invite input and to please send that to the following address, TMLPublicComment@muskokalakes.ca. At this point, none was received. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. I would like to advise that there was a supplementary agenda issued. At the following presentation was added to 4A public meetings, report from the Director of Financial Services, read the 2026 pre-budget report. At this point, I'd like to ask if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Okay, seeing none. Thank you. Just a quick note that motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting, and that members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk. This is not considered a recorded vote. So I guess we can move right on into the business of today, and I'd like to welcome to the podium Director Donaldson to take us through items 4A. Welcome.
Morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. So we'll just go through the PowerPoint slide that was in the supplementary agenda this morning. I'll go through and make some comments, give you a little background on the agenda. It's laid out fairly clearly. We'll cover some details on the background overview, get into a little bit about operating and capital assumptions that we are looking at, and then speak a little bit about other considerations that were not included in the pre-budget report, and then the path forward from this meeting beyond. So just a couple of introductory comments. So with the authority granted under Bill 3, Strong Mayors Building Homes Act 2022, municipalities across Ontario are navigating unfamiliar territory when it comes to preparing, presenting, and approving the 2026 budget. The new legislative framework that's supported by Ontario Regulation 530/22 has fundamentally altered roles and responsibilities in the municipal budget process. So as a result, many municipalities, including our own, are working closely with peers to share ideas and develop processes that respect the new requirements while maintaining continuity with the practices that have served well in the past. The goal has been to design an approach that functions much like the traditional budget cycle, but within the constraints of the Strong Mayor system. So historically, staff would have brought forward a budget guideline report to committee for direction, seeking that direction in the form of a taxation target or a range. And that target then was shaped by the experience and key assumptions would form the basis of the draft budget for Council's review and deliberation. So under Bill 3, however, that approach has changed, and instead staff have opted to present this pre-budget report as an informational document that outlines our high-level assessment of the Township's current financial landscape, emerging pressures, and priorities. Its purpose is not necessarily to recommend a specific course of action, but rather to provide the Mayor, councillors, and the public with the most informed estimate of what the coming year's operating and capital budget requirements may look like. The pre-budget report is intended to commence a dialogue, gather feedback, and frame the key issues in advance of the presentation of the 2026 budget, which will be formally tabled on November 3rd. So it's important to underscore that what's being presented here is our best advice based on the information available at this time. So we'll just move forward to the municipal budget. First slide, municipal budget slide. I'll have mine numbered. Keep going. Great, thank you. Yeah. So again, for the benefit of the public, a little background on municipal budgeting. So Section 290 of the Municipal Act requires every local municipality in Ontario to prepare and adopt a yearly budget. This budget must be adopted either in the year it applies to or in the preceding year, which is what we have done the last a few years, as we have adopted in the year earlier. There is a special rule in election years where the budget has to be in the same year as it applies to. The budget must balance and must set out estimates of all revenues and expenses required for municipal purposes. In addition to normal operating expenses and non-tax revenues, such as fees and charges, the budget also includes amounts needed to make annual debt service payments, both principal and interest, includes contributions to reserve funds and any funding required to fulfill its commitments to municipal boards, such as the public library. Any operating or surpluses or deficits from a prior year not contributed, a surplus not contributed to a reserve, or a deficit not covered by a reserve, so an actual surplus or deficit, actually gets rolled forward into the following year. That doesn't apply for our municipality because we cover our surpluses and deficits with our reserves, but if so, it would roll over. And it must also make provisions for tax collection, uncollectible taxes, and any reserves that the municipality deems necessary. Just to note that this budget presentation, or the methodology, differs in several respects from the full accrual public sector accounting principles that are used to prepare the audited year-end financial statements. So as a result, regulations under the Municipal Act, under OREG 284/09, require a reconciliation to clearly identify what those differences are. And the reconciliation helps to explain how the budget presentation, designed primarily to determine the tax levy requirements using a modified accrual basis of accounting, varies from the traditional full accrual approach in financial reporting. The budget, I would say, is one of, if not the most important tool that the township uses. It not only shows how money will be spent and where it comes from, but it also reflects what council sees as the community's top priorities. At the same time, it makes sure that services that people rely on are delivered at the right level. But like any organization, the township has limited resources.
Dog is back.
Councillor Kent, I'm not sure if that was you, but just to know your mic is on. I can't see Councillor Kent. It wasn't her? Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Sorry. So it makes sure that the services people rely on are delivered at the right level. The township has limited resources, so the budget is really about making choices, finding the right balance between new priorities, protecting existing services, and keeping things affordable for everyone. So next slide. So on May 1st, the province gave strong mayor powers to an additional 169 municipalities in Ontario. This change affected municipalities with councils of 6 or more members, including the Township of Muskoka Lakes. And these powers came from Bill 3 and give the mayor new responsibilities, including the duty to propose the annual budget. Although council passed a resolution asking to be removed from the list of designated municipalities, showing its concerns with these new powers, the township does not have the ability to override the province's decisions. The diagram here, and it's also in the report, shows the budget process as set out in Section 7 of the regulation. And each year, the mayor, as head of council, is responsible for preparing the proposed budget for the township. This budget must be prepared by February 1st and shared with all members of council, the clerk, and the public. Once council receives the proposed budget, they have up to 30 days to review it and make any amendments or changes, although council can choose to shorten the period to less than 30 days if they so wish. If council does not make any changes within the allowed time frame after the budget is tabled, the mayor's proposed budget is automatically adopted. However, if council does pass a resolution to amend the budget, then the mayor has the right to veto those changes within 10 days or a shorter period if council chooses for that year. When a veto is issued, the resolution from council is considered not passed, meaning the original budget stands. Council then has an opportunity to override the mayor's veto. They have 15 days after the veto period to do this. Then again, it can be shortened if council decides, but that vote to override the veto requires a 2/3 majority, and the mayor is permitted to participate in that vote. If the veto is successfully overridden, the council's amendments are adopted, and if not, then the mayor's original budget is deemed adopted. This process ensures that the mayor and council do have roles in reviewing and amending the budget, and while providing clear timelines to keep the process moving efficiently. The next slide. So when there are multiple levels of government, it can sometimes be confusing to understand who's responsible for what. So this Venn diagram on this slide is used as a visual to explain the division of responsibilities. So to clarify, the township pays for services like local roads, and those would be roads without a district highway number attached to them. Fire prevention and protection, recreational services such as the parks, arenas, trails, community centers, the library, planning and development, bylaw enforcement, building services, economic development, administration, and the collection of taxation for the township, the district, and the school boards. In addition to the township services, the district takes care of things like roads that are assigned a district number, water and wastewater, solid waste, ambulance services, long-term care homes, and affordable housing, while the province takes care of provincial highways, healthcare, education, and social services. However, the lines between these responsibilities aren't always clear, and sometimes different levels of government do end up overlapping some areas. All that said, the scope of this pre-budget report and this discussion is strictly about township services, which accounts for about 25% of the total property tax bill that Muskoka Lakes residents receive. Next slide. So staff and council are committed to creating budgets that are carefully planned and fund priority services efficiently while keeping costs manageable for residents. In 2020, council asked staff to review spending to reduce large recurring year-end surpluses, and that led to a leaner operating budget with some funds redirected to capital reserves. And since then, with less flexibility in the operating budget, the township has had to rely on year-end transfers at the end to cover revenue shortfalls or expenditure overspending, and that happened in 2022 and in 2024. So while controlling expenses is important, township needs the ability to deal with unexpected situations as they arise as well. So staff have continued to keep operating expense growth under control and support the increased investment in capital through contributions to reserves. But striking that balance is key. So budgets need to be lean, and there also needs to be enough flexibility to respond effectively when, for example, costs are incurred due to changing weather patterns or the effects of climate change require the increased need for additional roads, repairs, and maintenance. At the same time, capital spending has grown to address aging infrastructure and slow down further deterioration. Although the pace of cost increases has slowed in recent years, the period of high inflation that was experienced through the COVID pandemic has now appeared to become permanent. Next slide. So in the next two slides, at the end of the day, priority is making sure every tax dollar is used responsibly to deliver real results and lasting value for the community. Ratepayers rightly expect their taxes to be used to fund services that are stable, reliable, and of high quality, and that's exactly where staff and council focus their efforts. This means taking care of essentials such as renewing and maintaining critical infrastructure, as well as investing in people through training and development so our workforce is well prepared to meet today's challenges and tomorrow's. Beyond the basics, staff are committed to keeping policies and bylaws current, making sure emergency response is strong, and expanding programs where demand is growing. At the same time, evaluating and refining our processes using lean methods and other tools like peer benchmarking ensures the resources being used are being done so effectively and efficiently. Together, these actions aim to ensure that services remain strong, responsive, and forward-looking. They not only meet the needs of the residents today, but build a sustainable foundation for the future where the community can thrive. The items listed on this slide and the next one are just a few examples in each of the areas that talk about the things that we are delivering for the residents of Muskoka Lakes with their tax dollars to try to bring value to them in their everyday lives. Next slide. So hearing from the public is a key part of the budget process. It gives residents the chance to share what matters most to them, and whether that's well-maintained roads, recreation programs, or other services. Public input ensures accountability and gives people a direct voice in the priorities that are funded through their tax dollars. Residents have an opportunity in this open meeting this morning to voice those comments, and also can submit comments through our engagemuskokalakes.ca page on the staff pre-budget report, and that will be open and available to them and members of the committee for the next few weeks, up until and around the Thanksgiving weekend as we finalize the pre-budget report. Feedback is especially valuable to establish those priorities as mentioned. Budgets are about choices, so funding reserves, addressing climate change, or preparing for growth. All of these are important initiatives for the community and have to be considered. By participating, residents help shape the budget that reflects their priorities and planning for tomorrow. Next slide. And the next slide. So what have staff concluded? So the table shown here, and I apologize, there's a couple of changes to this slide that are different from what's in the report. So this table is considered to be the one we should be following. This shows that the pre-budget levy for 2026 would be $19.4 million, and that's a 10.4% increase over the 2025 levy of $17.6 million, and a 4.6% increase over what was projected last year for 2026. The 2026 outlook is what we refer to it as. To help put this in context as well, the percentages that you see shown beside each of the changes is compared against the total levy for that year. So the $1.2 million shown as an increase from 2025 budget for operating expenses, that percentage is of the percentage of the total levy for 2025, not just for that operating expense line, just to be clear on that calculation. So operating expenses are about $1.2 million higher compared to 2025, and that's mainly due to salary adjustments under the Township's compensation policy and new fire training requirements for service members, as well as higher contract services, materials, and equipment costs for 2026. As compared to the 2026 outlook of $576,000, that's mostly related to the increase in contract services and materials. On the revenue side, the net non-levy contributions to reserves made up of grants and investment income is lower than both 2025 and 2026 outlook, mostly due to revised estimates related to investment returns. These impacts are largely offset due to lower interest revenues under non-tax revenue, as the majority of interest flows through. So the non-tax revenue line below it also includes interest income, and those two numbers basically flow one to the other. Interest earned on reserve funds become a non-levy contribution to the reserve. So I can explain that further if there's any confusion on that one. But excluding interest, non-tax revenues for 2026 are about the same as the 2025 budget, because we have reduced short-term operator license fees, while fines for enforcement are projected to be higher. Again, for 2026, non-tax revenues are lower than what was projected in the 2026 outlook, because short-term operator license fees are expected to be lower, and I'll speak a little bit more about this in a moment, as well as the proceeds from the sale of road allowance and shore road allowance moving those out of the operating budget. They have traditionally been part of the operating budget, and we're trying to move those out of the operating budget as revenue. Other tax revenues like late payment fees and regarding penalties and interest and taxes collected through supplementary and omitted tax assessments are based on past trends. So all this being said, before we get to any contributions to reserves, the net tax levy increase of $954,800 over 2025 is a 5.4% increase. And that is $695,500 difference from the 26 pre-budget report to the 26 outlook last year is 3.8% more, 695,500. So the remaining increase is coming from a continuing commitment to fund capital reserves. Over the past 2 years, Council has raised contributions from $3.6 million to $6 million as of 2025. For 2026, staff have added another $875,000, which effectively doubles the reserve fund contributions since the start of this council term. This amount of increase accounts for 5% of the 10.4% increase that is being presented in this pre-budget report for 2026, with a slight change of 0.8% from the 2026 outlook and 4.6% overall between those two figures. Next slide. So staff reviewed the tax levy increases over the last 5 years to compare to the pre-budget report. And while the last 2 years have seen larger overall increases than in the prior years, overall operating expenses have remained fairly steady, growing at an average of 4.2%. And the main driver in recent years has been the much needed boost in reserve fund contributions to support capital. Absent new sources of revenue from senior levels of government to address the infrastructure backlog, and with the desired asset levels of service conditions to be included in the asset management plan, significant ongoing investments will continue to be needed for the foreseeable future. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about the increase in contract services and materials as being a major driver for operating expense increases. And this isn't just about inflation. Staff have identified areas where the township's current funding is just not keeping pace with the actual needs. So for example, the sidewalk network is a critical part of our infrastructure, but current funding isn't enough to maintain it properly. Repairs and releveling are essential to keep sidewalks safe and accessible for everyone, especially children, seniors, and those with mobility challenges. And if we delay these repairs, sidewalks will deteriorate faster, creating safety hazards, leading to much higher repair costs down the road. And the road network faces similar challenges. Roadside brushing, surface repairs, and other preventative maintenance activities may not seem urgent, but they play a key role in extending the life of our roads and preventing more serious damage. Skipping these tasks now will only result in bigger, more expensive reconstruction projects in the future. We talked a little bit about climate change and winter control. So winter control is another area that requires careful planning. And in recent years, we've seen more unpredictable weather, including swings in mild temperatures and cold temperatures, freezing and thawing, heavy snowfalls. And this unpredictability contributed to our budget shortfalls in recent years. So by planning ahead and adjusting the budget for these new normal conditions, air quotes normal, the township can respond effectively to ice, snow, and rain events and keep our roads safe and running smoothly. And these investments prevent more costly problems in the future without having interruptions. On the side of fire, in late 2022, Council was informed of a new provincial training regulation that sets higher standards for the fire service. These rules establish specific qualifications and training levels to be, for carrying out rescue services, skills that have long been provided by the municipality through its dedicated volunteer firefighters. Meeting these requirements is essential to ensure the township can continue offering the same level of fire protection and rescue services while keeping firefighters and residents safe. To take on this challenge, the township created a new full-time deputy chief role in 2024. And this role is focused on organizing the rollout of the training plan and making sure it aligns with the provincial deadlines and building internal programs that work for learners at every stage. The deputy chief also oversees the coordination of instructors, resources, and scheduling to make both the training effective and manageable for volunteers who are balancing their service with their regular jobs. And the new training plan is now in its final stages, and starting in 2026, fire service members will begin working through a series of training modules designed to meet the new provincial requirements. And this will be a significant undertaking, but it will strengthen the township's fire service, ensuring compliance with the provincial regulation, and most importantly, providing that higher standard of safety for the community. Next slide. In the area of recreation, changes to the community center fee policy over the past year has led to more people using these facilities, and that's a great sign that residents are taking advantage of these spaces. However, increased usage means more work behind the scenes, and staff need extra time for cleaning, maintenance, and preparing the facilities for the next group of users to ensure they stay in good condition and safe for everyone. We've also seen a higher demand for specific activities, especially during the summer months, like pickleball in the arenas. And because staff are required to be present in the arena whenever those facilities are used, additional hours have been added to cover this demand. These adjustments help ensure the township can continue to offer enjoyable, well-maintained recreation spaces that meet the community's growing demands, and while keeping operations running smoothly. And as council is aware, the launch of the registration portal for the short-term rental licensing program was delayed, which has extended the overall timeline for licensing. And under the original plan, the program would have been fully operational in 2025 with a focus on enforcement in 2026, with most licensing and educational activities having been underway for quite some time. But since then, new information about the number of operators has shown that the initial estimates were overstated, meaning the program will generate less revenue from license fees than originally expected. The program was designed to be self-funded, and surplus revenue from the program was absorbed into the general township operations and provides some relief, and which provided some relief for the general taxpayer. That amount has reduced because we have fewer operators expected. Given that 2026 will now be more of an educational year about the short-term licensing program, there is expected that there will be will focus on raising awareness and guiding operators through the process. At this point, staff have kept the fine levels that were in the 2026 outlook, but we will continue to review these further as we go forward through the budget process. And while the revenue from license fees is lower than initially projected, the focus on education is really a commitment to ensuring that we have compliance in future years. Next slide. So this slide summarizes much of what we've already discussed. Ongoing increases in capital funding are essential to address the township's current infrastructure backlog. On the surface, it might look like increases in funding that we've made would significantly decrease that backlog, but in fact, it's more complicated than that. Costs for materials and services have rose sharply during the pandemic, and they haven't gone away. In many cases, the additional funding that has been added is largely just keeping up to those increased costs. For example, the cost per kilometer of road surface treatment has jumped nearly 50% since 2021. While we've been able to accomplish more, the same work that was done 5 years ago now costs substantially more than it did in that time. The goal with reserve funding would be to match contributions to annual expenditures and then gradually increase that funding beyond that point to strengthen our reserves for the future. Looking ahead to 2026, the capital funding projected still will result in about a $3 million shortfall, which will reduce reserve balances. So it's worth emphasizing again, as I've said up this podium before, there is no risk of over contributing to capital reserves, but I recognize this is a long-term issue. It isn't a problem that was created solely by the pandemic, and it won't be solved in just 1 or 2 years. I think steady, ongoing investment is required to maintain and improve our infrastructure responsibly while keeping the township on a sustainable path. Next slide. And the next one. To that point, the pre-budget report estimates that capital spending in 2026 will be about $12.5 million, and more than half of that will be dedicated to transportation projects. Project estimates have been updated and adjusted using nominal dollars based on a 4.5% inflation factor, which is the 20-year average of the non-residential building construction price index. And that's consistent with the factor we used when we did the township's asset level of service study. The estimated total over 10 years is now 198 million. And that in today's dollars, if I discount that back, is about 160 million over 10 years. Next slide. So included in the plan are recommendations from the recent fire location study, which envisions that 3 new stations will be built over the next 10 years. The township will want to consider debt financing for some or all of these larger projects, and the assumptions around timing may change as needs evolve and the project and the plan gets redeveloped. Some of the roads, there's been some reprioritization of projects that have already taken place to address the most urgent needs. The upcoming completion of the road needs study will provide a more detailed picture and help staff and council identify which roads require attention first. The estimated spending increase outlined in the asset level of service study for the roads area has also been included in this 10-year plan, but not specific roads have been identified yet. That will come from the roads needs study. And we will bring that back and identify which ones are in which roads are in most need. For parks and recreation, the plan includes major investment in the arenas, including a rescoped project to fully remove and replace the roof structures on both arenas within the next 5 years, as well as replacing the concrete flooring, which will come in at a total cost for everything of about $8 million. Other priorities include playground equipment replacement and the reconstruction of township-owned docks in the coming years. Finally, the capital plan also covers a regular replacement of operational and fire vehicles and equipment to maintain best practice to ensure safety and reliability. Next slide. So while this may not be a complete list, it highlights most of the likely sources of funding for the township's capital projects. Staff are always exploring application-based grants to help reduce the use the draw on council's reserves wherever possible. But like many municipalities, the needs are great and competition for these grants are fierce. Programs such as the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, and the Canada Community Building Fund, which was the gas tax, are primarily directed towards transportation projects. Together, these form about $2.5 million in funding. Development charges have a more limited scope for eligible use, but staff look for every opportunity to apply them, especially where population growth drives the need for new infrastructure. Funds from cash in lieu of parkland are available for recreation projects, and using them for that purpose is pretty straightforward. However, forecasts of contributions for the future may be affected by the township's new official plan. Staff continue to recommend that Staff continue to recommend that the township's limited debt capacity be reserved for large-scale renewal or replacement projects, while ongoing regular capital rehabilitation should be funded through other sources. Township has benefited greatly from the generosity of community donors, and with the support of the Muskoka Community Foundation, further opportunities may be explored to help fund future projects. Finally, the sale of surplus property provides one-time capital funding and offers some relief to current and future taxpayers. So staff remain committed to developing funding strategies that make the most of available grants, obligatory reserve funds, and community support while keeping debt levels manageable and allowing projects to continue to move forward. Next slide. This chart highlights why it's so important to explore every opportunity for capital funding. Even with the funding we have currently, reserve funds are expected to continue to decline and will be fully depleted in 2 to 3 years if current spending levels continue at the same level. While it may be tempting to defer projects to stretch reserves, that approach often ends up costing more over time and can delay and can lead to more extensive repairs in the future. Council has requested staff to develop a policy which sets a plan for funding reserve funds and including the maintenance of a minimum level of reserves to respond to unexpected issues like those we've faced over the past couple of years with the culvert and the wall. To prevent critical deterioration of Township's assets, it's necessary to continue increasing contributions to reserves in the coming year, and that will allow us to keep our infrastructure safe and in good condition without placing an undue burden on future ratepayers. Next slide. Next slide. So staff have reviewed a number of other potential budget changes that would have added costs and further increase the tax levy. The merits of each option are discussed in detail in the report and summarized here. And while these additions would be very positive for the community, they are not considered critical at this time, and ultimately their inclusion is subject to the mayor and council's wishes. Community expectations and direction from council can exceed staff capacity, meaning only a portion of the work can realistically be completed alongside of our regular day-to-day duties. And while meeting service expectations and the residents' needs are a top priority, there's a limit to what can be accomplished and to what residents are able to pay for. So staff carefully considered this balance when deciding not to include these additional items in the 2026 pre-budget report and leaving the final decision for mayor and council. If council chooses, these items could be added or reprioritized in the final budget, which will be presented in November. This approach ensures the budget remains responsible and sustainable. And next slide. And next slide. Thanks. So in summary, the new budget process has been outlined earlier, and this report is being presented for information only at this stage. Staff will now wait for direction from the mayor, which will be informed by the feedback received from the public and members of council to prepare the official budget, which is scheduled for presentation on November 3rd. The public can continue to provide feedback over the next few weeks, and either through engagemuskokalakes.ca or, if they wish, can make a delegation through committee. After the budget presentation, council has a period of up to 30 days to review and if necessary, make resolutions to amend the mayor's presented budget. A meeting has been scheduled for November 24th, if required, where these resolutions can be discussed and voted on. It's important to note there is no final vote on the budget. It will be considered to be automatically adopted once all the legislative timeframes have passed, and this approach ensures that the budget will be adopted prior to January 1st. I thank you for your attention, and staff are here to support council with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Donaldson. I appreciate that. At this point, I would like to ask if there's any members of the public who would like to provide comment. We will come back to committee for questions and discussion afterwards, of course, but at this point, I will open it up. I know that Sandra, would you like to join us first at the podium? Thank you. Okay, welcome.
Good morning, Chair, councillors, neighbours. My name is Sandra Ford, and on behalf of the Bala Cranberry Festival, I respectfully request consideration for support through the Township of Muskoka Lakes and their operating grant program. The Bala Cranberry Festival has been a cherished tradition in our community for over 40 years. What started as a small community fair setting intended to promote the local cranberry market as well as extend the cottage season one more week has evolved into one of Muskoka's most iconic events. The festival draws thousands of visitors to Bala every October, celebrating our region's cranberry heritage and supporting local businesses, artisans, musicians, and of course the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Last year alone, approximately 14,000 paid attendees came to the festival, with probably another 5,000 over the weekend that did not venture into the ticketed areas. Many more visited earlier in the fall to take in the Muskoka Lakes Farm and Winery, a valued partner of the festival since its inception. Muskoka Tourism has also created a cranberry route guiding visitors to over 30 stops across Muskoka to experience food, talent, and culinary creative. All of this creates a significant positive economic impact and helps showcase Muskoka's vibrant culture, natural beauty, and entrepreneurial spirit. One key goal of the Bala Cranberry Festival is to support the community financially. Over the years, many local students have received bursaries for post-secondary education or sports events, and an equal number of local community organizations have received funding. Last year, $20,000 was gifted from the festival's net proceeds. However, rising costs and a shrinking volunteer base have made it increasingly challenging to sustain the festival. Our board membership has also suffered, meaning fewer hands to oversee and handle the many tasks to build and plan the festival every year. Looking at the numbers, 2024 brought in an income of $238,000 to the festival, but our expenses were $201,000, which left $30,000 net income before we even considered our community funding. Some of our big ticket items were $17,000 for security, safety barricades, and fencing, $20,000 for the kids zone attractions, inflatables, the trackless train, and another $24,000 for stage entertainment and buskers. I haven't even touched on insurance, property, venue rentals, paramedics, sanitation, bus shuttles, marketing, or staffing costs. We would greatly appreciate the township's support through any of the following means: direct financial assistance to help offset operational costs such as security, logistics, sanitation, and shuttle services, in-kind contributions such as support with road closures, venue rentals, setup, tear down, and promotional assistance, partnership in marketing efforts to expand our reach and attract even more visitors to the region. The festival is grateful for past assistance with the supply of picnic tables, garbage cans, road barricades, and as well as township staff and vehicles for waste collection. We believe a larger partnership between the Township of Muskoka Lakes and the Bala Cranberry Festival represents a mutually beneficial opportunity. Together, we can strengthen community pride, encourage sustainable tourism, and ensure that this signature event continues to thrive for years to come. I have so much more to share with you if you have questions. Thank you for your time and consideration today. I welcome the opportunity to meet with council or township staff to further discuss how we can work together to make the 2026 festival and future festivals our best ones yet. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, before you leave the podium, I'm just going to ask committee, just while you are here, if they may have any questions for you on this delegation. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. So for other members, I've been involved with Cranberry Fest for many, many years. And I recognize the safety issues that we've had to deal with. I'm going back to maybe 2019 when the township decided to wheel in the dump trucks. For instance, they were our safety barriers. That didn't work so well. So I'm curious, Sandra, if you happen to know what that cost is for those safety barriers, because I'm where I'm going with this is I think that it's something that all of our events could use, but I just don't remember if the fee for that particular, the rental of those barriers.
So we have a few different safety barriers we use. We have the three, I don't know, for those who have been to the festival, we have three large yellow, almost scissor-like safety barriers that we put at the top and the bottom of Maple Street. And then over at Victoria Street, we also bring in some bicycle barricades, the metal ones, and those are in addition to the orange barricades that the township provides. Those those elements alone were just under $20,000. I think $17,200 is what last year's cost were for those. And I know that's something that we've talked about as a group, whether we should be purchasing those and then lending them back out to the community at large, rather than continue to outlay that cost year after year after year. Okay. We also bring in, to go along with the safety aspect, we bring in a security team who monitors the festival grounds 24/7. And that's also part of that costing.
Thank you. Councillor Bird?
Thank you. And through you, my question is security. So thank you. We pay about $7 million to the OPP every year through the district. And I'm wondering whether we're having to pay supplementary OPP fees to get, so there's likely several layers of security. Uniformed duty constables. I suspect there's private duty pay for service constables, and then the security company on top. And I'm just wondering if we could ask, maybe even through our OPP representative on the committee, I think he's got something to do with the budget entirely. If we could get a little more duty service from the OPP to offset some of the costs and maybe minimize some of the private duty. I know the constables like the private duty.
So it's the
work.
question for Ms. Ford is what?
How can we explore getting more OPP without increasing any fees, or possibly decreasing the fees so that we get better value for service from our OPP contribution?
So perhaps I can even ask the question, what is the current role of the OPP during your festival?
Current role of the OPP for the festival, we reach out and request paid duty officers to primarily look after the top end of Maple at 169 and Muskoka Road 38, also at 169, because those are obvious strain areas. And for safety reasons, just navigating cars back and forth, navigating the public walking across. We don't usually hear back until closer to the festival whether we have those resources to us, because they come as I'm going to suggest a voluntary. The request goes out and then somebody has to voluntarily put themselves available for that role. We, of course, pay for that. And depending upon the individual, there's a different rate of pay for the 3 days. But I know a couple years ago, we had none. Nobody showed up.
Okay. But just for clarity, though, the festival pays for those officers to show up.
Yes, they
So,
do.
okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, committee? Councillor Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the delegate. It was good presentation, a good synopsis. And I apologize if it was sent to the township and I haven't seen it, but could you provide a written summary?
Definitely. I did send through a draft, but I also suggested that I was making some changes. And I spoke with the clerk this morning and did tell her that I would provide a revised version.
Thank you, because I look forward to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Thanks for coming in
Thank you
today.
for your time.
Beautiful day. And thank you to you and your team. It is a very successful event here in Muskoka. Are there any other delegates either in the room? I don't see any. Anybody online? No. Okay, so committee, at this point, I'd like it to open it up to you for any questions for Director Donaldson and or other members of staff, but let's start with Director Donaldson first, and perhaps you can help us, I guess, maybe questions and comments. I think that's fair. Questions and comments. Sure. Okay. Councillor Burry has a comment.
Thank you. As the district councillor responsible for finance, I think I have a unique perspective on how things fit together. And first, I'm going to start. Thank you through you. I'm going to thank Mark, Mr. Donaldson, for a really good and comprehensive snapshot of our township budget. In my term here, I can tell you that the most frustrating and confounding part of the job has been trying to mitigate how to fix our constituents' contribution to the total budget. So as Mr. Donaldson pointed out, about 25% of what our taxpayers see on the bottom end of their bill, which is what they pay, comes to the township, a number around $19 million. About 50% goes to the district, and we're among 4 votes. We don't always agree on those 4 votes, and the district does what it wants to do. I'm going to say that the township significantly subsidizes many district functions. I'm going to give a real-time example, and please bear with me because I mean our contribution to the OPP is $7 million, and our total operating budget is $19 million. So that should give folks some perspective. Roads, which are, as Mr. Donaldson pointed out, a shared resource. We have township roads and we have district roads. District roads have evolved over time, and some roads that are currently paid for by the district probably don't belong there. They probably belong to being a town road. So I'm going to pick a specific example that's going on right now. Silver Bridge in the town of Bracebridge needs to be reconstructed. The town of Bracebridge says it's a tourist piece and wants it reconstructed as it is, like I would call it a mechano bridge because it's structural steel. It looks like something I built as a kid out of mechano. It would be faster and far more cost effective to put in a precast concrete bed to be the bridge. But the district currently is not really thinking about it. They just kind of go about their way, and if Bracebridge asks for it, they kind of get it. We're trying to run interference. We've not seen the cost estimates because I've asked 3 times at Public Works, where thankfully they actually let us ask questions even if we're not members of that committee. What's the cost difference between doing a precast concrete bridge and the lovely Silver Bridge mechanical? And we've not had that number. That's but one example of hundreds of pieces that the district goes about using our 40% contribution. So the Township of Muskoka Lakes contributes about 40% of the total budget for the district municipality of Muskoka. That is double any other lower tier. So our issue with our budget is not our budget, which I actually don't think are ever going to be able to fix. Our problem is that we're contributing too much to the district and not getting enough value back for that. We have Bala Cranberry Festival. We have to pay private duty OPP that they find out 3 or 4 days ahead of time because it is volunteer. And thankfully, the members of the OPP do that. But should it be private duty where we're paying a couple $100 an hour per person, plus vehicle charges, plus. When we're already contributing $7 million to the OPP operating budget for Bracebridge and Huntsville. So it's a complex place that we're put into. We have real capital needs, we have real operational needs, and I don't think we're ever going to be able to satisfy those as long as the total bill that our constituents see are massive. I can tell you that many of my neighbors have homes in downtown Toronto in nice places. Their Township of Muskoka Lakes bills are now larger than their City of Toronto bills in real dollar terms. But when you take 50 cents of every dollar and it's going to the district where we're funding 40% of their total budget, we can't fix that here around this table. And that is a real conundrum, if I'm allowed to use the word, and why I started off with this is the most frustrating position I've ever been put into, because there is no real viable solution at our table. Our hands are tied. So we somehow have to figure out what we can do with what we have. I'd like to go on record as saying I challenge our CAO and his senior leadership team to use technology to start to think. We talked about one of the considerations in Mr. Donaldson's presentation about planning. I do think that we can probably juggle around those levels to keep the staff if we start to use some of the tools that are available to us in the computer world. I'm not going to use the word AI, but there are applications and other kinds of tools that help speed up decision-making and decision-making processes. They don't make the decisions, but they help make decisions. And I would challenge staff to embrace technology. I'd like to see it that we freeze headcount, and we say that as a council. We freeze headcount in the township unless they're driving a truck or whippersnippering outside the council chamber as we're having a meeting. No, arena staff, you know, those are the people that are actually like really doing the work. And if we could cut our administrative overhead, and I'm not saying cut staff, it can all be done through the regular course of business, but to freeze our staff headcount and focus on the delivery and try and automate whatever we can, wherever we can, I think that would be a nice place to be. But that's really all we have, I believe, at our hand. And the rest of it is at the district. And I'm not sure it's a solvable solution unless we leave the district. And I'm not sure that that's a viable solution, but I'd sure like to explore it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll apologize for being.
Yeah, so let's just keep our comments. I did want to give you the opportunity because of your perspective at the district. And I know that there's a lot of people that find it difficult to understand the relationship. And there was a slide in Director Donaldson's document that talks to the services that we have here versus the district. So given that, I wanted to give you the opportunity, and I could see that you'd put some time and thought into what you wanted to say. I do want to remind us that we are actually here to talk about our current budget. And so with that, I'm going to send it out to the rest of the group for either questions or comments on Director Donaldson's report. I do see your hand up, Councillor Kent, and then Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Actually, I had a follow-up for Councillor Burry, which I just wanted him to repeat so I could get the numbers properly. Thank you, by the way.
Okay.
My question was, Councillor Burry, can you just repeat? We have 4 members of 30 on district, which is a small percentage. And we contribute what percentage to the overall budget? Meaning the Township of Muskoka Lakes contributes what percentage to the overall budget of the district?
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is I'm going to ask Councillor Bree to respond, but then I would like to redirect all of our questions
understand.
now onto our current budget. Just,
I just
don't want
wanted-
people to get confused.
I just want that on record so we have the right numbers out there, if you don't mind.
Okay, so Councillor Burry, one comment, and then I'd like to ask people to focus back on.
Well, thank you. So we, the Township of Muskoka Lakes, contribute about 40% to the district municipality of Muskoka. It varies. It's been as low as 34, 35%, and it's just pure math, and it depends on the impact valuations and how much of so. But 40% is an easy way to do it. We have 4 councillors. Huntsville has 4, Bracebridge has 4, Gravenhurst has 4. Lake of Bays have 3, and the Township of Georgian Bay have 3, so total of 21 if my math's correct. Plus a district chair that has no vote at council, but has a vote at committee.
Okay, so those are the
So what are the
facts.
total, 4 out of 25 or something? What's
21.
the total
Okay,
numbers?
so I would,
21.
okay, so I think
Thank
what
you.
I'd like to do, guys, is bring us back now to what we're here today. The reason I let Councillor Burry go on is because of his role at the district and because of the connection to the tax. So anybody who's watching has an understanding of the relationship, and when they get their tax bill, that what we are talking about today is the 25% on that total tax bill. And that is what Director Donaldson has presented to us today. So with that, I am now going to ask, hold on, Councillor Bray. I have Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. My, I guess my question would be through you to Mark. Or I'm trying to get creative, I guess, and to figure out some of our projects, how to address them differently, I suppose. I'm going to say the playgrounds, for instance. And while we were getting contributions from folks, I believe within the budget, I'm trying to separate those items out, that they're not part of the amount of money. Like district doesn't get a percentage of those projects that we're taking on ourselves, and that the public are willing to pay for through contributions or whatever. So, because I think I looked we could be in the 500,000 range, for instance, for some of those projects. Over a few years, but
So just for my clarity, is the question to get clarity as to public contributions
no,
to projects that we have?
no,
Okay,
not at all. Sorry, I'm trying to separate some things out of our budget that we don't have to have, that somehow the district doesn't get a percentage of the money, is what I'm trying to say. So while we can say,
no, so hold on for 2 seconds. Again, I'm just trying to make sure that we keep ourselves focused. So is this to do with the budget that we see in front of us today?
Yes.
Okay, so Director Donaldson, do you have clarity as to what the question is? I just want to make sure people.
I've had 3 people interrupt me
Yeah.
while I was trying to do it. So I'm just trying to say, all I was looking for is to say, if we were to remove $500,000 from the budget, for instance.
Right.
And then say, okay, we've got these projects that we'd like to do. Let's put it out to the public and look at how much money comes in. But that 500,000 in the overall dollars of what we take in, I'm not explaining it very well, but I just don't want the district to tap into that 500,000.
No.
So Director Donaldson?
Thank you, Chair. So any money that we're levying to our residents is for our purpose. We're just kind of, if you think of the tax bill as A plus B plus C, we're just one of those letters. So there's no having to kick up, so to speak, if I can use that term, of any money we're collecting from our ratepayers for our levy. But there certainly is advantages for ratepayers if we are able to fund some of our community capital projects. Like we're talking about capital projects through fundraising and donor getting that group kind of motivated. And I think Councillor Burry's mentioned this in previous meetings. We're happy as a charitable organization to offer charitable receipts where members of the community wish to donate money directly for specific purposes, where there's no such tax benefit for your property tax, where money comes in through that route to then have to fund playgrounds or dock replacements or those types of projects that perhaps there's opportunity for community member sponsorships or those types of things.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. I have 2 or 3 questions, but I'm going to just home in on one for now, then come back after I hear my other colleagues speak. We recently reviewed and accepted the service level review report. And the first question would be to Director Palucci, just to clarify, remind me. In that report, there were 4 groupings. One was adequate, when we were looking at each item. What were those? Can you remind me what those 4 groupings were? Just
Okay, Director Palucci.
Through you, I also can't remember the 4 of them now, but maybe Director Donaldson can come up quickly.
That's okay. That's okay. It's I can still form the question
Okay.
that I have for Director Donaldson. Director Donaldson, I recall the service level review report had 4 or 5 different categories where we said we'd rate them and say they were needed to be done or they were urgently to be done. But anyways, when you consider the expenses for the 2026 budget, what level of service delivery did you have? Did you set it on? Was it adequate or was it higher?
So through you, Chair. So those levels were part of the report that was approved, and council kind of selected what those service levels of those assets were going to be at.
And there was a financial piece as well to that report. The largest piece of that was the roads projects over 10 years. I think it was totaled about $25 million. I think we were going to add to the budget over that period of time. So that was added. But basically I took for what was in the level of service study, anything that was incremental to what was in last year's 10-year plan, we layered that in as well. So where we may not have been increasing service levels under our previous 10-year plan, this 10-year plan that's, again, greatly grown from what last year's was, reflects the levels that were approved by council in that report.
Yeah, Councillor.
Supplemental on that point then, it was a concept or at the appetite of council that we agreed somewhat on those categories or that were rated. So I think in this budget, we need to look at those incremental decisions that were made and, and validate that that's the service level that we want. So that's my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. Back to the deck on Strong Mayors Building Homes Act, and just wondering the interplay of that. I don't want to call it a wrinkle because it's our new reality, but I'm wondering, and if I could direct a question to the mayor, because the mayor, I think, talks to a lot more people than I do, and in terms of the whole township, have you had comments and reflection from the public, our taxpayers, on this pre-budget report? Have you, perhaps it's even just, on the street, in terms of what are people feeling about tax rates, tax increases, et cetera? Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, yes, I have. Not so much geared to this report, because this report's only been in the public for 8 days or something, I think. I forget how long. But generally and overall, I can tell you from everything from social service agencies to ratepayers associations to individual taxpayers, a fear that double digits is too much. Now, that's without any backdrop. That's without any explanation or understanding that it's easy to criticize. It's much more difficult to call out what you want to do. Stop doing the roads, stop doing this. Nobody's got any constructive feedback, just a comment that it's too high. But let's take a step back. You'd have to be willingly ignorant of what's going on around us if you didn't realize there's a economic calamity, I think, going on. It may affect Muskoka, or at least those parts of Muskoka that we're most familiar with, much less than the rest of this province. But we've got a sharp decline in housing. We've got sharp increase, perhaps stabilized a bit, in interest rates. We've got unemployment going up in certain sectors, vulnerable sectors. We've got I will say, ravages of homelessness, of mental illness, of addiction that's going untreated. It's not a pleasant thing to be in right now. And to incrementally put 10.5 on top of the situation we're already in is going to take a considerable amount of leadership from around this table. It absolutely has to be done. If it has to be done, we have to stand up and speak to it. We have to be able to rationalize and get people over the hurdle that there are many higher callings or other high callings and demands for money. And this is not, I think we also probably are victims of our own public relations over the last couple of years, where we were forecasting 5.8, I think, for this year. And we're coming in at, 5, we're coming in at not double that, but more than that. So I don't really want to engineer this from the number down. I want to, take the work that has been done in developing the theory of the increase, go through it like with a fine-tooth comb, make sure we're comfortable with it. We can explain it. We understand why it is that there aren't better alternatives to to fund or finance, defer or delay. But at the end of the day, we have a very large organization to manage here or to lead through here. Unfortunately, I've had as much notice as everyone else has to look at these numbers. The report is impeccably well done. I thought it was extremely well delivered by Director Donaldson today. You know, I'll do everything that I can to get comfortable with every part of it before we start prescribing anything different, if in fact we get to prescribe anything different. It's an alarming opening statement. But if we stop there, we're not doing our job.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burry?
Thank you. And through you, a question for Mr. Donaldson. Total contribution of the Township of Muskoka Lakes in dollar terms to the District Municipality of Muskoka last year?
Director Donaldson?
Within the closest million.
Within the closest million? I'm going to say we probably sent them about $35 million.
So let's call it 35. And we're talking about a $19 million budget here. 5%'s under $1 million. If we were to cut 5%, we're looking at a number slightly less than $1 million. I'm trying to do math for public consumption.
Okay. So I understand that. Yeah, Mayor Kelly?
I'm going to respond to that. I think that's an absolutely critical issue. It's not one we're going to solve between now and the 23rd of November. We have a $19 million budget, or not a budget, a proposed financial statement that we have to dig into and deal with. And I think it goes without saying, or should go without saying, that we have to tackle the district and create or find ways to create real value from the investment we're making there. But that's independent of the $19 million we're presumably going to have to deal with over the next 35 days.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask, no, Councillor Burry, thank you. I am going to close off the conversation currently on the district, because staff have prepared and are sitting around this table today to talk about pre-budget for the Township of Muskoka Lakes, which is what's in front of us today. And I want to make sure that members of the committee have a comment. There's questions we need to be asking. Are we comfortable with the direction? This would be historically, this would have been talked about as our budget guideline. So currently, the guideline, as I'm reading it, is at 10.4%. So if you think about last year and the previous years when we've been doing budget, we were giving direction on, is that something we're comfortable with? Kind of generally speaking. So I would like to bring that conversation back. There's some information in here that I suspect all of us would have read this, that you may have questions on or comments on, that is at this point being listened to by Mayor Kelly. Because the next step, as noted in the new process, is he will be giving direction to staff to come back to us with a budget on November 3rd for us to comment on. So today I'd like us to really be thinking and responding to what's in front of us, which is the Township of Muskoka Lakes budget. With that, Councillor Roberts, and then Councillor Nishikawa, and then Councillor Burry.
Thank you.
And then Councillor Kent, I see up there as well.
Thank you, Chair, because I was going, the mayor echoed exactly what I was going to say. We got to focus on this budget right now, things we can influence. So I'm going to take my two quick questions that I have. And one is for Director Donaldson, one is for Director Colucci. The first one to Director Donaldson is that for the first time I heard 25%. It's always been 20%, or I thought it was always 20%. Can you explain how we got up to 5 more percent?
Director
Sure,
Donaldson.
through you, Chair. So the Ministry of Finance has not changed the education tax rate for several years. So we've been going up, district's been going up as well. Education's been shrinking, so we're just kind of taking up the space really of the lack of increase by the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Finance for school boards.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks for that explanation. And my second question will be as quick to Dr. Colucci. Your predecessor mentioned was very sunk into me with a very simple thing, is that we have about we should be replacing every year or upgrading, doing something with 35 kilometers of road. And at that time he commented we are only doing it at 14%. Do you have a handle on what percentage of that 35 kilometers we're getting done annually for this
And,
year?
Director
for you,
Kaluki?
for you. So we're not doing 35 and, there's different level of service for different categories of road, right? So, we talk about brushing, if we want to do brushing of all of our roads and say, we want to do it, every kilometer of road gets brushed once in 20 years. So, we're not at that level either, right? So, we're at, once in 40 years. So, the increasing brushing will help doing that. The reconstruction of roads, we do a road need study. So that sort of determines which roads we need to repair. And, obviously we do have a deficit of capital in roads and in structures. So every one that we do each year will sort of reduce that deficit. But at the same time, our entire road network and our entire bridge network are getting older, right? So as they age, then, we have to do more and more work. So, I think we're probably at about maybe 10% of that 35 kilometers or, 10 or 12% of that 35 kilometers per year. And, whether 35 is the right number or not, that's going to be determined by the road need study. So, because that's going to give us different levels of repair, because we don't have to reconstruct every road, but some roads, we have to do a slurry seal. Some roads we have to do an extra layer of asphalt. Some roads we just have to grade, right? So all those things are part of the overall plan that we're doing. So the more we do, the closer we'll get to that goal in the level of service study.
Okay, Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Kent. And
Thank
Councillor
you.
Murray, I think again.
Through you to Director Kaluki, I have a concern about the roads need study. And to give you an example, twice in 20 years, I'm aware of that. I think it's 1,000-foot part of a road, which people have come forward. There's been petitions and all sorts of things to get the municipality to take care of this. And in fact, they haven't in almost 40 years. And I'm afraid that that's going to get pushed back again. And I'm not sure how those people get heard, honestly. They've done all the things, they've come forward, they've done all of those things. And sometimes it's just as simple as grading. They were really pleased when all of a sudden their road started getting graded, and so I'm just a little concerned about some of those things that we've put out to people. We've said, okay, we're going to take care of you in 2027 or 28 or whatever. And now we're going to push you another 5 years out, those kind of things. I'm a little bit concerned about that because I don't know what that looks like when it comes to the budget. I don't actually know what roads we're taking up right now. But so I have that. And I also am going to ask the mayor a question. The
So
mayor
let-
has.
Yeah, so I'll give you the second. Let's just do the roads and needs and then I'll come right back to you then.
Through you.
Okay, Director Kaluki.
So, there's sort of two parts to that question. The first is the road need study. So the capital plan that we have in this budget that we're proposing is actually based on the last road need study because the current one is not finished yet. So we haven't been able to reprioritize that. But, the road need study basically sets an engineering, analysis of the condition of all the roads in our network and then determines capital projects that require to be done. And, as you know, the total budget is like $140 million. So we don't spend $140 million in 1 year. We spend, $10 million in 1 year. So part of the study is actually determining what level of capital expenditure we need to spend to maintain the current level. And if you look at the level of service study, we actually said in that study that we were going to slightly increase the overall pavement condition index of all of our network. So it also will look at what we have to spend in order to maintain that proposed level of service that's in the level of service study. The fact that sometimes roads get moved around in that road need studies from one to the other is probably because staff are doing some maintenance work And that improves the condition of the road. So the PCI actually goes up, right, from one to the other. If there are specific needs of any road that needs to be maintained, then, staff will work with residents to do that, right? So if there's grading required or if there's potholes, then we respond to complaints as they come in. But as far as the capital plan, and we do a 10-year capital plan, that's going to be based on the road need study, because that is, the engineering analysis that we've done to ensure that we're treating everyone with the same brush, right? So every road is assigned to PCI. We assign capital works based on that pavement condition index. So when, if it's at a lower level, then, it might need reconstruction, but if it's at a higher level, it might just need to be resurfaced or a slurry seed. So hopefully that answers your question.
And now you have a second question.
There's gonna be two in this one, but to the mayor, you've mentioned 19 million a few times now, and I'm looking at closer to 20. And is 19 in your mind? Like, are we going down that much? Like, I'm just not sure where you're coming from. That's why I just.
Where I'm coming from is I've read it and haven't memorized it. So
No,
if it's
okay.
20, we'll go to 22 to make everybody happy. It's whatever it is in this report. I know what everybody else knows. We've done no more work. And
Okay.
this is a session where hopefully we're going to get some constructive, actionable and specific items, not necessarily just in this session, hopefully between now and when the direction is next given to staff to prepare a budget. I'm hoping to hear, recommendations or ideas, concepts that are actionable, specific, identified with some sense of urgency. I mean, something that we're just curious about or a little bit concerned about isn't going to hit the registry. And something that is within the control of this body to influence.
So
Yes, supplemental.
follow
Or a
up.
second.
So some of you know that I'm on the accessibility committee for district, and honestly, Muskoka Lakes isn't even on the picture. And I'm just wondering how, like, it's not part of this budget at all right now, right? Is that kind of what I'm getting?
How is accessibility incorporated? I guess it's the operations group. So Director Colucci.
Through you. So, in our 10-year capital plan, we do look at accessibility, but, some of our facilities don't 100% meet the accessibility requirements. And we would only bring them up to those requirements when we do a major renovation. So for instance, we're talking about doing a major renovation at the arenas. If that does go forward, then during that renovation, we will look at accessibility to bring them up to standard. Like this building, it has accessibility items in it. We have an elevator, so it does meet accessibility requirements. But if we were to build a new building, then we would, meet 100% of the guideline, because that's required under the building code.
So if I may, I actually was thinking about the roads, like sidewalks and things like that. And, because right now in both towns, if you happen to be on a scooter or some kind of, you have to drive in the middle of the road. Of the highways. And so that's what I've talked about this for years and years. And in fact, we have not done anything moving forward. And I'm really concerned that we're an aging population and we're ignoring the needs of many, I guess.
So
For you, sidewalks. So as Director Ellison mentioned, that, we have increased some operating costs for sidewalks, and that's really, not to build new sidewalks, but to bring some of our existing sidewalks up to a greater standard, right? Because we've noticed that, a lot of our sidewalks, they do have some depressions and cracks. So we're looking at spending more money to bring those up to a greater standard. Now, the second part of that is that there will be new sidewalks required. The district is looking at installing some additional crosswalks. And, so when those crosswalks go in, there will be part of that project will be to extend some sidewalks to those crosswalks. So we are working with the district on that capital plan. And, the district will, as part of the crosswalk project, including some sidewalks in there. And then in the future capital budget, we may have to build some more sidewalk to join up to those sidewalks that they're building.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to propose, committee, is Councillor Kent has had her hand up, so I'd like to give her an opportunity to either ask her question or comment. And then I'd like to take a break because I think what we need to all absorb is what Mayor Kelly just asked, which is he's listening today. This is a new process. There's a lot of information in front of us. So this is our opportunity to provide actual, real, actionable items based upon the feedback or the data shared by our staff. And so after Councillor Kent, I would like to propose a 15-minute break. We are going to come back, and at that point, we're going to have more questions and comments. Okay, so Councillor Kent.
Thank you. Director Donaldson, that was a very helpful report, meaning very concise. I do want to go back to, and I feel a bit like a broken record. It's my third year on council doing a budget. And I guess my biggest concern for Mayor Kelly going forward is, despite the increases in reserve investments, the balance keeps going down. And it's now going to be at an unacceptable level to me. I wanted to know from Director Donaldson, how did you come up with the 750K? We don't have a reserve fund policy yet. I know you came up with a very fancy report that was very helpful, but we still don't have a policy that says this is enough, this isn't enough. I mean, I have a very strong opinion on this. I don't think we have anywhere near enough. And it's driving, in my opinion, all of the issues that I have. So first question is, how did you come up with the 750? The second request would be for down the road is I think you should pull out, I would recommend pulling out every large identifiable project that you could from the capital budget and lumping them into a pool to be debt financed or thinking about debt finance. That would be instead of building a new arena, we're going to invest substantially in doing the arenas. We're going to put a fire hall out. So pull them all out and see where we're at without the significant projects that we might choose to debt finance. So that would be my second comment. And I think we do have to agree as a council, or Mayor Kelly has to give direction directly to staff on what is a minimum level of reserves that's acceptable and a policy that goes with it, because otherwise we're still operating in the dark. And I think the public needs to understand that we can talk about, all the operating expenses we want, but the issue is capital and the underfunding over the last 15 years of our assets. So anyway, those are my three questions. How did you come up with 750 for the current year? Please, if you could come back to us with a list, pulling out everything that we might possibly be able to stuff into a pool called debt financing for major projects. And then I'd like you to come back with a recommendation on the minimum reserve level acceptable, because it's not acceptable to me that we've depleted our capital reserves by 2028. So I know the public doesn't want to see large increases, but I don't have a solution besides pulling stuff out of the operating pool. And I don't mean operating expenses, out of the operating capital pool and putting them into a debt financed pool. Anyway, those are my three questions for you, Director Donaldson, and thoughts from
Thank
Mayor
you.
Kelly.
Okay, thank you very much. Those were great. Councillor Kent, Director Donaldson.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So we actually increased again. So the pre-budget report actually increases contribution reserve to 875,000 over last year. So I actually bumped it up a bit. To your question of how I arrived at that number, it was truly arbitrary. It was trying to balance tax pressures on residents and being respectful of affordability, while trying to maintain the momentum that we've created over the last couple of years by continuing to increase contributions to reserves. So there was no math or science to it. With respect to the financial piece on debt financing, absolutely agree. I think there's a number of things on the coming down the pipe with respect to big financial implications included in the capital number that we've talked about today. There is discussion around some replacement of some fire halls. They're kind of spread out. And I made a comment about timing around those. So, it may be more prudent when we kind of get to actual action plans to couple of projects together and debt finance them all at once rather than do one, then 3 years later do another one, then 3 years later do another one. But again, I think the market will help guide that discussion too around timing of when is the best time to take out debt financing. And with respect to the reserve policy, we've brought forward a conversation informational piece earlier, and we will be revisiting that.
One follow-up, please.
Yes, a supplemental?
Yeah, Director Donaldson, what I was hoping you do is if you pull out, you make that list of everything you could put into a debt financing pool. And I don't know the numbers. So let's say it's $15 million of stuff if you pull it out of the 5 or 10 year budget. And then that was to be intended to be part of a financed line or something those were only major projects. They're not day-to-day operations like roads. And then looked at the numbers without that group in there to see what happens to our reserve fund. That's all I was trying to do. So it would be a mini analysis that shows, with a plan to do that, how does that change the numbers? Because I can't think of another alternative, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, thank you. Director Donaldson?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can certainly do that. I think the number of large projects that are currently in this 10-year plan is probably in, I'm going to say, $30 million range. I am not counting, rehabilitating a road or anything like that. I consider that to be kind of ongoing, but, for rebuilding fire halls or acquiring property or doing those types of things, then I think we look at that. But again, I think that bar chart really doesn't change materially. Maybe it doesn't go down quite as quickly, but it's still going in the wrong direction. So we still need to continue to increase those contributions or make decisions around the amount of capital investment we're doing. I think we've made great strides in the last few years, and I think that's what the community expects, but it's a balancing act.
Thank you. So committee, it is now 10:31. I know, Councillor Burry, you get the first comment coming back because you had your hand up. And I know you have some more questions I'm sure to ask. 10:45, we will resume, and thank you.
Got that, Kurt.
Okay, thanks, everybody, and welcome back. At this point, I will turn over the floor back to committee for any questions or comments, knowing Mayor Kelly is listening, as our staff. Councillor Burry, you're first up.
Well, thank you, and through you, and I'll apologize. This probably would have been better 40 minutes ago, but that's the way municipal councils work. I'm going to try and answer a question of yours, which is, do I think the percentages are appropriate? And I'm going to try and help the mayor understand the communications problem, because they're intertwined. No, I am not happy with the percentages, but I'm also not happy using percentages. So my math, as rudimentary as it is, tells me that a large percentage of a small number is still a small number. And a small percentage of a big number is still a big number. So 10% increase in the Township of Muskoka Lakes is not equal to a 10% increase at the District Municipality of Muskoka or the town of Bracebridge or the town of Gravenhurst. So it is much like talking about apples and oranges and eggs. They're all food, but they are not at all similar. I think part of our communications problem, Your Worship, is that we continue to talk about percentages when we don't talk about real dollars. And I know when I pay my taxes, I'm not paying a percentage, I'm paying a dollar amount. It comes out of my bank account, and I happily, sometimes, put it into the Township of Muskoka Lakes bank account. So I think that fundamentally our communications problem is that we talk about percentages when we're not talking about real dollars. I'd like to commend Councillor Kent on her framing around the capital budget. And I think that that's more in line with the way we need to think about both operating and capital budgets. So what kinds of things can we do? Where can we trim and what can we trim? But let's be clear, we're looking at an increase of about $1.5 million if we go with the pre-budget piece. And I'm not going to use the percentage. But if we talk about $1.5 million versus we send $35 million to the district so that they can rebuild roads that are in the middle of a town and no longer meet the definition of a district road, I have a problem. And I pick on roads because roads are a big deal for the Township of Muskoka Lakes. I know that Director Colucci has a very difficult time balancing both his operating and his capital budgets. Climate doesn't help any of that. So the answer, Madam Chair, to your question, am I happy with the percentages? No. And do I think we have a communications problem? Yes. And I think we really need to focus on helping our constituents understand what the issues are on a total context. And while today we're only talking about, rounding errors on our little municipal budget, we're not going to fix it. I don't believe there's much we can do around the township budget. I really don't.
I thank you for that. That was a nice blending of the two comments from earlier today, so thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the mayor. You were asking for actionable items, and I think we should. But the numbers, when you look at it, the budget report comparisons, and we're talking about $1.32 million for just the operating expenses, but that's just picking on that one because it's right in front of my eyes. I'd like to understand what that is. What are the items, detailed items in there? Because if we're going to make suggestions on we shouldn't do A or maybe should do B or stuff like that, I'd like to know the items, the drill downs on that. So that's just a comment so that I can give you actual items. And then the other point is that to you, Your Worship, other years we've had a la carte type of items or items that were proposed to the Director of Finance that we want to include as council. And I think this year it's really, those should be directed to you between now and the time. If we want one specific road done, or we want to improve one of the arenas or something like that for this year's budget, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's your budget, so we should be really sending those to you. Is that correct?
I think from an engagement standpoint, Director Donaldson, Mayor Kelly, do either one of you want to respond? I think you did talk to it in your report, but.
Yeah, I think Director Donaldson did mention it, and I mean, to my way of thinking, making those comments, directing them to me is fine. Absolutely copy Director Donaldson so that we can keep track of them and figure them out. But again, back to the comment, I don't think it's ever intended that the comments that are directed to whoever's authoring a budget in the old days, you know, in the finance department, or now under the new rules, it's the mayor. I don't think they're intended to just look for negative comments. If there's new projects that we're not thinking about, stuff that's important that's come up, we need to hear those too. But again, it's very difficult to evaluate, understand, or do anything with a notion. It's really got to be something more specific, more actionable, something tied specifically to the jurisdiction of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. And it really is helpful if whoever makes the suggestion can link it to some sense of urgency or priority. Is this really, really important, or is this just a nice to have?
Director Donaldson?
Well, through you, Chair. So just, we're trying to keep the processes as much as we can the way it has been in past years. So if there are comments, they can be directed to me, and I will ensure that the mayor gets them. Or to his point, if there is a desire to send them directly to him, if they could be copied to me, that would be helpful as well, because I'll be doing, based on the mayor's instruction, a lot of the heavy lifting to get us to the finish line. So.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to point out that I think you brought up the historical, we'd have an a la carte list. I do think there's the start of that, but it's under the title of considered but not included. There's the 3 items under there. So these things have been discussed historically and they're here, but they're not currently included in this 10.4% that is being presented today. So Claire, is that correct? I just want to make sure yes, Director Donaldson is nodding his head. So Councillor Roberts.
Just to follow up on that, agree. Yeah, I see those 3 in the report, but there may be
Right.
other projects that councillors feel should have. So that just want to bring that to attention
Correct.
between now
Okay.
and, okay, thank you.
Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Kent.
Thank you. Through you to Mark. If a land purchase of some form was to be asked for or whatever, how do we increase the assets, and then like, is there a better way to offside some of that?
Director Donaldson.
And I would just say recently, the purchases we've done were not part of the budget in the past.
Yeah, so I think, if I understand the question correctly, I mean, I think that a planned land acquisition is better than an unplanned land acquisition with respect to being able to budget for it, ensure we have the funds for it. But that being said, we have to source it from whatever funds we have available, whether that's through parkland and cash in lieu of parkland, or whether that's through a council reserve, or where that might come from. I mean, I think we just want to be careful that we're not making unplanned draws from the reserves beyond what our capital budget kind of outlines, or we're going to be in trouble faster than what we think we are now.
Thank you. The supplemental?
In my construction world, we actually are noticing quite a decrease in materials, quite frankly, and also lots of labor is available. So things are adjusting that way. But I would say we also delayed projects a year to see this happen. And it's been more favorable. And I'm just wondering if, I'm going to look at Corey, and to say, are there suggestions of a project that could wait another year? I guess from the playground perspective.
I
So.
mean, I'll just, well, Corey may be planning to think of a response in terms of what he's got planned. We haven't finalized anything in the capital plan. It's just been kind of, what we think we need to do and when we need to do it. But the timing of when we'll actually be able to do these things are really driven by affordability. So again, the contribution to reserve this year, the increase to 6.875 million plus the grants we're getting. I mean, I'm showing that we are showing a fiscal deficit in terms of our reserves, but I mean, pragmatically, we can't allow them to reduce to nothing. So we will have to make adjustments and perhaps push things out to make them. I mean, that's not ideal, and that's certainly not what we would prefer to do. But I mean, the reality of the situation is we can't have no reserves, so we would need to make adjustments as we go.
Okay, yeah, one more supplemental and then Councillor Kent after.
So what comes to my mind with the recent presentation of the Milford Bay and the Hannah Park rejuvenation of those projects, I find it interesting because I'm looking at things a little differently when it comes to Ward A. I don't know that we've had the opportunity to approach the public on either one of those projects so for instance, in Milford Bay, there happens to be a couple of people that have generally donated a fair amount of money to the municipality for projects like that. I don't even know that we reached out yet. And I do kind of wonder if we should take that time or opportunity to start putting those asks out. And I'm not sure that I don't know how it comes about. I don't know how the township does it or another, sort of insular group or counselors or whatever. I just think that there's more opportunity to gain some more involvement with the community on those park projects.
So do you have anything you wanted to add okay. So
No,
looking for
through you, Chair, I mean,
any capital project that we have.
Yeah, and I
lends
think in
itself
my
to.
yeah, and in my presentation, I think that we have identified that we need to maybe start focusing and making a better use of donors and through the community foundation that we were, discussing that policy here at this table, of ways we can access other dollars to try to fund some of these more community-based projects.
Okay. Councillor Kent.
Thank you. I have a question which could go to Director Donaldson, but maybe better to Director Huff. I don't know if she's in the room or not. I was trying to understand the change in the outlook on the short-term rentals that's embedded in the plan or, 26 outlook that you have. I was surprised to hear there was such a substantial drop in the base of short-term rentals. And is that a question of people not wanting to declare themselves now that we're going to license it? What has changed the data, I guess, is my question. And explanation would be helpful on that, because that's not a significant number, but it's obviously something that changes the economics of that plan.
Okay, Director Huff.
Thank you. Through the chair to the councillor. Certainly I can explain it. So I think council will recall, I think the original estimate that we received from Granicus was about 1,200 units. What we realized as we got closer to and entered the contract is that 1,200 units actually included duplicate rentals between Verbo and Airbnb. And so in some cases, people choose to rent them on both platforms, and that was shown together rather than excluding the duplicate. So we were aware of that, and we have updated council of that reduction down to about 800, I think was the most recent estimate. Since that time, with the start of the program, we did a mail out to all of the owners of rentals, advising them of the start of the program and giving them an opportunity to be aware of the time frame that they could apply and get the discount. in response to that mail out, we've received a number of phone calls, like in the hundreds, from people advising us that in many cases, though we've identified them based on old ads that are no longer or were not intended to still be active, but were swept up in the data suite by Granicus. And so that has resulted in further adjustments to our estimate on the number of STAs. As well, you know, we're estimating that a few of the owners will choose just not to participate in the program this year. And so for those reasons, that's why we've continued to adjust the numbers a little bit lower than what council last received as information back in, I think, June.
Councillor Ken?
Could I just follow up? Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. So it went from 1,200 to 800, then you think it went from 800 to 600? I don't know what the number would be. But I guess
Director
the
Huff?
question is, no, but the continuing question is, do we think people are, I mean, if they don't register, they can't operate as a short-term rental. So are we going to have a program in place to find these people, or am I the way this works? Like, they can't just say, I don't want to pay the money and I don't want to register. I'm still going to license.
Okay, Director Huff?
Thank you, Chair. So we're seeing, I'll answer the first question. So I think we're seeing somewhere between 600 to 700 units is probably where we're going to land at the end of the day. And then in terms of people just choosing not to get a license, that's why we have a contract with Granicus, who will continue to monitor the marketing of those units. And we will be flagging those units that if we receive complaints about them appearing to be operating and yet they're not licensed and yet they're marketing, that's a trigger for bylaw officers to attend the property and provide education that they need a license, and then ultimately to enforce as appropriate in those circumstances.
Thank you. Okay, are there any Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through you. I suppose just a sort of a reality therapy piece for some. I have been sitting in this council chamber since 2018. And so for those first 4 years, I know the mayor and you, council, and a few of us, you know, we're adamant about small tax increases, trying to keep them minimal, because that seemed to be what the taxpayers were saying, or that's what we were hearing, at least, and interpreting. And now, again, being reelected and into 2022, to here we are finding ourselves today, where some around this table, this could be their last budget, you know, for this particular term, if you will, in full. There are so many things that have happened, and maybe just, again, the reality of this, to keep this in mind, is that I don't know about anybody else, but my car insurance is going up and I'm 70 years old. You know, my house insurance and my cottage insurance are going up. And they're going up by a sizable amount, within the range of 5 to 10%, and with very little reasoning as to why, other than that's just the way it is. So, you know, I think there's a concern that I have. I mean, I look at this budget and I you know, we need this budget. I don't know. We can talk all we want about cutting things back, but then it snows for 4 days in December. And, you know, we've had a lot of unfortunate circumstances that we're dealing with. So we, the public, are dealing with. We're saddled with these, right? I mean, it could be upwards of $5 to $1 million. And hopefully we haven't spoken yet about what the government may give us in terms of assuaging some of that cost and concern. But I think on a bigger scale, I think the public, and I have no idea how many people are watching today, but I'm appreciative of this process, that, you know, we using the word pre just to position this. And we were asking the mayor these new questions because he's got these new powers. At the end of the day, he's the same guy that I talked to in 2018 about a budget. And so here our budgets are doubling, you know, essentially. What have we had, 10%, 15%, 10% proposed? You know, I think it's much healthier. We've got all these plans that we spent all these years developing, master plans. So we spent all this money, and at the end of the day, we always knew we were going to need to fuel the machine with money. You know, what these plans, you know, uncover inadequacies, shortcomings, or what people want, you know, a perceived increase in level of service. Nobody wants a decrease in level of service. So I think at this point in time, I'm kind of good where we are. I think the report is incredible. Like Mark's department is doing an incredible job. And I hope we don't try to pick apart $50,000 here and $61,000 here and $18,000 here, because as I recall, for 3 years, we seem to sit here and people come forward and we pretty much give you $5,000 if you come forward and somehow there's a good, decent reason, we'll find it somewhere. There's a lot of that, right? And maybe that's one of the things that we should stop doing, and maybe making commitment to doing that. But I don't think that's going to get us out of this budget. That's not going to make this budget 4%. There ain't no way this thing is going to be 4 when these folks who are charged with the task are coming to us at 11. So thank you for the rant, but I can say that I'm appreciative of the process. I'm going to give this process it's due. I'm going to listen to the public, because the public don't want another 10% price increase. They don't want another $500 on their taxes, but we may not have much choice in that gap between 0 and 10 in terms of completing the commitment, which is to maintain a level of service. So that's just some food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you very much. And through you, I just want to respond to that in the moment, if I could. I agree with 98% of what you said. Absolutely. And I don't think the focus on the 2026 budget should be any different than any of the 5 or 6 that several of us have worked on jointly over the last term and a half. I hope nobody goes in trying to engineer to a specific outcome. The only outcome we should engineer is how do we prudently manage the goals and ambitions of this place and the people that live here and their needs as efficiently as we can, cost effectively as we can, to make sure that they're not wasting money that they place with us to get roads and everything else that we do here put in good shape. I do think it takes a bit more of a line by line than just simply, I think the world of Director Donaldson, but I'm going to go back and fact check a little bit. And I think we all should. We owe it to our constituents to do that. But not a fact check to say, how do we engineer this to something that's more palatable? How do we make sure that the number we put out there is justifiable, is actionable, is something we can all understand and we can all explain, and we can communicate this is absolutely what we need to do and not a penny more in order to keep the level of service at or above the current level. We've got there's a couple of splits here that we've got to recognize. We've got to consider the needs of the permanent year-round residents who are often in a very different financial situation than those who are here seasonally. That's one big issue that always comes to the front when we're dealing with the cost of running basic infrastructural supports over the winter months. The other thing that we have to recognize, and I think Director Donaldson's report does a terrific job of it, is the split between the operating budget, which, and I know we're not going to deal in percentages, is about half of the overall increase that we're looking for. It's maybe a little harder to explain to people why we need to keep putting money away against capital, the capital spend that we see up down the road. But that's part of leadership. We have to understand that well enough and be able to communicate it well enough for people to understand it's in your best interest that we put it away now against or for the possibility or the absolute likelihood that we're going to be spending something on improvements or infrastructure failure or whatever the draw is on the money. That's a good half of the increase that we're looking for is dedicated to making sure we have appropriately sized reserve funds.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? See Councillor Nishikawa, and I see Councillor Edwards. Do you have your hand up? Okay, so Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Edwards.
So again, I just wanted to say that I agree with Councillor Burry that I could not approve new staff during this budget. And I will be talking further to looking at other revenue opportunities. But I don't want to, at this time, I think that it's time to sort of sit back and see. We may have to rejig staff, whatever, I don't know. I'm not trying to manage anybody. I'm just saying that from a taxpayer's perspective, the last hit was a little bit much, and I get it. And the one before that, you know, but I'm just saying that on this particular year, there's a lot more concern. So that's one thing that I don't want to do is add additional staff.
Mayor Kelly and then Councillor Edwards.
If I may, because these are comments that I'm going to take into consideration, obviously. I need to understand that better than I can when you say you wouldn't approve, would you say new headcount or new payroll, increased payroll? If that's the case, and it's an honorable undertaking, I think you need to be specific. Which program do you want to cut? Which increase in service do you want to roll back? Because those headcounts aren't just put in there to fill chairs. They're put in there to do jobs that at some point in time, this council asked to have done. And now we're going to say, no, we aren't going to put people into increased hours in the arenas. We're not going to put people into monitoring pickleball. We're not going to put, I believe it was certification for something for the fire. I should have read that closer, for the fire department. So not increasing headcount is certainly a great way to keep expenses under control. I'm going to ask if someone comes back with that recommendation to tell me where they want to take it out.
Okay. Just response, yeah.
Specifically about that, I didn't look at the fire certification thing as the same as adding staff members. I did recognize that there was, oh, actually, I didn't quite understand it. Are you looking for 2 deputy chiefs or just the one? But mostly along the line of bylaw, because we increased our complement last year or this year. And I'm still not clear. Like I don't have a report that I can say, okay, this has made a difference to our community.
Okay.
Kind of thing. And so I think that's a longer term thing, but at this point, I would just like to see what the outcome of adding the staff the year previously that, yeah, I don't know that I've seen those reports. Maybe they're out there and I just don't know where to look.
Okay, so specifically under the considered but not included, there is one option of increasing another seasonal, or sorry, our seasonal to full-time enforcement officer, but that's currently not in the budget. I think hearing from Councillor Nishikawa that she would support not having that in the budget. I'm just trying to. No, would not. Sorry. Yes. Okay. I'm just trying to follow the line here to be more specific. Okay. Yes. Sorry, your mic isn't on and I realize that.
Sorry, I just wanted to support
Right.
what Councillor Burry brought forward because it made perfect sense to me in a longer term perspective.
Okay.
And I'm more interested in also finding, I have to dig deep to figure out how to pay for things. So I really would hope that there's more of a concern looking that way as well.
Okay. CAO Pink and then Councillor Edwards, thanks for your patience.
Sorry, thank you. And through you, the chair, just wanted to clarify, there's some discussion around increase of staffing or headcount and perhaps some confusion. So just very briefly to clarify, there's no proposed increase in headcount in the budget, save for there is half of a position with respect to implementation of the climate mitigation plan. That was actually stemming from a planning committee, subsequently council ratified resolution when that plan was approved. So that is in the draft budget and council can consider that, but that was placed in because of that direction. The direction was not that specific, but Director Huff did coordinate with her peers and is looking to share that service with, I believe it's the town of Huntsville for half a position. What's before you in the considered but not included, I don't know if I would really call it an increase in headcount. Again, very quickly, the arena function, there are 2 seasonal positions with a gap of, I believe it's 8 to 12 weeks. And the suggestion is for a number of reasons, consideration could be given to 1 full-time position as opposed to 2 seasonals for 80 to 90% of the year. The planning division reorganization is not an increase in headcount, nor is it even an anticipation to fill at those levels, but it would just improve succession planning and ability to for internal development purposes, place positions at certain higher bands so that it promotes, again, internal growth. And then lastly, again, I suppose this you could characterize as potentially an increase in headcount, but it's not headcount per se, but from one seasonal for a full-time officer in the bylaw division. And that's simply in response to the numerous comments we've heard over time about the need to expedite or move some of those initiatives forward a little more quickly with respect to updating bylaws, more bylaws, and also enforcement and more proactive enforcement during the summer season. So I hope that clarifies the staffing that's proposed. Again, those are not included in your 10.4%. They're, as Councillor Roberts indicated previously, you could think of them as an a la carte item, but the half position for implementation of your climate mitigation plan is included as per your previous direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Just if you could just give me one moment. I just need to ask the clerk a quick question. Should I do it now or wait till after? Okay, Councillor Edwards, can you just give me 1 minute here? Thank you. Just in the spirit of, I've heard from now 2 members of committee suggesting that they would prefer not to add to headcount. Coming off the heels of what CAO Pink just said, there is actually one role embedded in our report that indicates it is included in this number. And that is on page 6 of the actual staff report that staff have included $50,000 for a shared resource with another area municipality to fill the role of climate change and environmental initiatives and responsibilities. So given the fact that both of you have brought that forward, the question I was asking the clerk is is that something you would like to ask of the mayor to consider in his direction to staff? Councillor Burry.
Thank you. And seeing as though I raised the issue, I think it's something that the mayor needs to consider. I'm not sure we need to change anything at this point. We're still in the throes of putting the mayor in an exceedingly difficult position to make all of the decisions on our behalf for his and his alone budget, of which he will be totally responsible and accountable for.
Oh, thank you for that levity. I appreciate that. But
I want the mayor to know I did leave the pin in the hand grenade before I tossed it to you.
Thank you for that levity. I appreciate it. Councillor Nishikawa, I'm just hearing from your colleague that just consideration is really, we're asking consideration to be given to that role.
My question about that particular role, and I was initially reacting to anybody that was going to comment that they wanted for the a la carte items. That's initially what my staffing thing was. But I will also say I'm a little concerned. I'm going to ask a bigger question. What are we getting out of district for climate change? Like, what is specifically happening with our own municipality? Because we've already hired all sorts of people at district to do this sort of thing. And I really am trying to understand if somebody's already doing this stuff, shouldn't we know about it?
So I believe that particular role was included because it actually was a resolution from planning committee for us to direct staff. So we've done a bit of that analysis correct me if I'm wrong. And I just think at this particular moment, it's just simply asking the mayor to consider this in the next budget. Okay. Thank you for your indulgence. I'm trying to figure out how to manage this as well myself. Councillor Edwards, thanks for your patience.
I've been so long, I can't remember what I was gonna ask. But I'll try.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to see us, as Councillor Burry said about percentages, completely drop percentages. Show people what they're paying on $100,000 assessment. And then if you have $1 million, it is times 10 or 2 million times 20. So, and then compare all the other municipalities at the same. In other words, and show them what each one's paying per 100,000. We'll find out that we're the lowest of all of them. And then people can work on it from there. But percentages don't give the true picture. And I've even had the district starting to say in 100,000 now, so people can multiply it. They used to go, one would go 500,000, one would go 300,000. And you have to divide it and then multiply it. So it's just so easy to do it that way and show people what they are getting. Show what they're paying to the district per 100,000, the school board, and what we're charging per 100,000.
Okay.
And I think that would level the playing field. Also, I'd like to see them show what we paid last term on this or the last budget for each municipality. You will find out you're not paying nearly as much as the other municipalities and show what we're actually paying the district by the dollars, not 50%, not anything else like that.
Okay.
That's one thing.
Mhm.
I would like to also, with the Bala Cranberry Fest, show what we're giving in donation and in kind, because I think we give a lot to it, which is fine, but then we know what we're actually giving to it. And that, because they did have an ask for the budget, so I'd like to see that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for my own clarity, I think Mr. Cox wasn't here, but Director Huff, you might be able to help with this. I think I heard that there is a new shift possibly with to shift towards an operating grant, and perhaps a more clearly understood memorandum of understanding would come with that. Is that clear? Is that part of this ask? Is creating a more sustainable approach with this particular event?
Thank you through the chair. That's correct. That's my understanding of the discussions that we've had with them and what they would appreciate receiving from the township.
So that would be then, just for clarity, kind of clearly defining the roles, the responsibilities, and to be able to respond to those questions. How much is the financial, the in-kind support, and other kind of areas of support?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Edwards?
Also, I think we should look at our grant program. We give 25,000 a year. I think as long as I've been on council, it's been 25,000 a year, and everything is growing up over the years. And that's so that, you know, we should be looking at that, because that is something, if we had to cost out what volunteers do in their time, we couldn't really afford it. So this is just a thought. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. CAO Pink.
Through just to back to the discussion or questions on the delegation we heard earlier this morning. I believe I heard that in essence, it was a request for an operating grant. As per the policy, obviously it's a little outdated in that it directs that should committee council feel that that organization's operating grant proposal has merit after delegation, that it will direct staff to include the requisite funds in the draft annual operating budget for council consideration. So obviously now that would be directing the mayor as opposed to staff, but it may be helpful for the mayor and staff to be aware of committee's position on that delegation. I haven't, unless I missed it, I don't believe I've heard discussion about a desire to consider said operating grant.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. I see Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I had a question through you to David, I guess. The community improvement grant, could the festival be included in that? And again, sort of where I'm going is the purchase of the barriers is the big cost to the festival, that they have no recourse, like they just have to pay it. And but yet it is something that could be used. I actually don't agree that the festival owns them. I believe that it's a request that the municipality own them, but otherwise, could the community improvement grant be applied to that type of a purchase?
Okay, CAO Pink?
Thank you. To Director Huff and Director Donaldson, if you wish to add to that, I'm not sure if the community improvement plan is really the optimal avenue. That would be, again, there are streams on the private side, and I'm not sure those would fall into an entity. It would have to be a landowner in, and I don't think the organization is a landowner per se. However, again, either through the operating grant, I think that's where, as we've heard, those in-kind services and perhaps an annual allotment can be considered and better documented in an MOU. That doesn't exist currently. But if there is a desire for the municipality to purchase barriers and allow any organization or event to utilize those, I think that direction can be provided or that desire expressed, and staff can ensure that it's placed in the budget through the appropriate channel. But I'm not sure if it's, again, the community improvement plan, because there's either public or the private initiatives. Private is for landowners and public is for things specifically for, say, Bala or Port Carling, whether that's street furniture, signage, etc. But these, I think, are more of a portable asset that could be utilized anywhere. But again, let the method, leave the method to staff. If there's a desire to pursue that, that direction, I think would be helpful to the mayor and staff.
Okay, so I just want to, before, in case you have a different question, I think I just would like to follow on the Cranberry Festival delegation from earlier today. I hear from CAO Pink that staff and or the mayor would probably like a direction. Are we generally supportive of them exploring an MOU and an operating grant? So I'm trying to, Councillor Roberts, would you like to put forward that request or?
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have two significant events in our township every year that contribute to the community, to tourism, education, or whatever. And so I think that if we're going to do an MOU a couple of weeks ago, or the Chihuahua committee was here. Sorry about that. I got it lodged in my mouth. Anyways, I think we should consider both of those. I don't know of a third one, but those two come to mind.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I do believe the group has been working with Mr. Cox on a similar approach. So with that thought, with a couple of anchor, longstanding, community-led events within the township to explore an MOU and operating grant, is that the direction then, or the request for the mayor to consider? Am I hearing that from multiple people? Thank you. I think that satisfies, right, from the process standpoint, just.
Sorry.
Just a discussion if we need a resolution, given our current focus on that. I just wanted to be sure that I was capturing everything correctly. But it would appear from the three key stakeholders here, they're satisfied. We do not need a resolution. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions, comments, thoughts as it relates to this current budget? Councillor Edwards?
Just a thought too with reserves and that. If we show a project, say it's $100,000 and we move it to the following year, it may go up to 105, 110,000. And that, so that every time we push something, it's going to be more expensive. And this is why I know we've needed a fire department in, and that for the 15 years I've been on council, had we put $100,000 a year away, plus the interest on that, we could have built it. If we now borrow money and debenture it, maybe to figure out the cost of financing and everything else like that, it's astronomical, and we should be able to show people that we're being prudent by putting something away for the future. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm generally hearing quite a few comments that seem to be focused on how we communicate this out to the public. And that there feels like, generally speaking, that people are okay with the current information in front of us with a few considerations for the mayor. But I want to make sure that before I'm looking to committee if there's any further questions or comments. Councillor Nishikawa?
Sorry, I'm just really trying to focus on revenues, trying to create. And, you know, for the different traveling that I did this past summer, everywhere we went, every province we went, we got accommodation taxes. And I'm really not sure why Muskoka Lakes isn't engaging in that. Because that's who we are, for the most part. And I understand that the Airbnb thing and all of that stuff is a separate thing, but you know, Huntsville doing it, Bracebridge is doing it. I think Gravenhurst is doing it. Like, I just wonder when Muskoka Lakes can step up. And I'm just saying that I'll leave that with the mayor.
Okay. I do want to remind everybody, going back to the presentation, that I suspect that all of us are going to be thinking about what we've been discussing today. We may have further comments or thoughts, that we still have an opportunity to do so through Director Donaldson, Mayor Kelly. We can provide our comments up until, was there a date? I just want to be clear on that. Tonight? Okay.
We've not communicated an official date, an official date, but I would say the sooner the better. And probably would be looking to put final pen to paper just after the Thanksgiving weekend. So
Okay.
the sooner the better, though.
Okay, with the knowledge that we will be receiving a report and this budget on November the 3rd, correct?
Well, the agenda would be published ideally week and a half before that
Right.
meeting, so we would want to have that all wrapped up.
I just know that for all of us, we've been absorbing quite a bit of information today, and I suspect somebody might have a new idea or a new thought coming out of today. I want to make sure it's clear. Councillor Burry?
Thank you. Through you, just with the accommodation tax, I'd like to point out that several of our constituents have taken it in their own hands to already charge an accommodations tax, which they put directly down to their EBITDA line on their own financial statements. So maybe it is time for us as a township to look at that as a potential source of revenue to fund some of the other interesting pieces, and you know, that'd be a nice piece to then have the extra money to be able to do more for Chautauqua, for the Bala Cranberry Festival, and for some of the other things that the township does. So municipal taxes, hospitality taxes, are, for those of us that have traveled anywhere, are not new. It's on the bottom of almost every bill you pay. And I do know that some of our constituents have decided to take that into their own hands and do it. So maybe we should have it as opposed to their shareholders.
Okay,
So
I am
we'll
going to
leave
ask,
that to the mayor.
well, I'm going to ask CAO Pink maybe just to quickly add, and then Mayor Kelly, is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy to clarify. I think it certainly is staff's intention to bring that matter forward. I think that clear expression of interest as we went through the short-term rental discussion and more recently in other discussions. I think not to speak to the delay, but I think it is prudent and appropriate for staff to get their feet under themselves in the municipality with respect to the short-term rental program first. That's been quite an undertaking. As you can recall, a lot of discussion around the policy development and the bylaw development. The implementation is a handful, and staff, I think, need to get their feet under them before taking on that next step of that project. And I think it's also important to sort of know where you're at and get some firm numbers, as we've seen through the short-term rental discussion. Numbers get refined, clarified, revised, and I think it's important to really know what we're dealing with before we enter the next step. But staff's happy to and do intend to undertake that MAT project initiative relatively soon. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you. And through you, with, in all honesty, it's been considered and discussed, and I can tell you only from my opinion, the last time it was really seriously looked at a couple of years ago, it was consciously decided that to layer that on simultaneously with the licensing of short-term rental would create huge backlash among the accommodation providers. As you all know, the days of the family resort hotel are pretty well gone. I know there's still a few around, and I know some of them are still already collecting this tax. But to try to layer that on top of the short-term rental people at the same time as we're going through the licensing process was just viewed to be too much too soon. And it's certainly next on the list as soon as we get that up and running.
Thank you. I'm going to read the resolution moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that report FIN-2025-017, 2026 pre-budget report be received. And that committee and public comments on the pre-budget report be received for consideration on preparing the township's 2026 budget pursuant to subsection 284.16, I can't read that, that's funny, 2 of the Municipal Act 2001 to be presented later this fall. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you, that carries. Director Donaldson, it goes without saying to you, your team, staff, thank you very much for bringing this forward today. Mayor Kelly, I don't know if you have any final comment that you would like to make prior to me reading our final resolution.
Thank you very much. And through you, just real quick, practically speaking, the sort of legalities around the creation of the budget have changed, not at our request, obviously. There's a lot of bumping around in the dark trying to figure out how to navigate this. We'll figure it out. I don't see the process as being a whole lot different than it was in the past. I'm looking for everybody here to carry, the notions and ideas that they believe are relevant and important, surfaced mostly from your constituents, so that we craft a budget that's in the best interests of as many people as we can possibly accommodate, and gives us sort of a guideline to give staff a guideline to operate this operation as efficiently as possible. I'll repeat because it bears repetition. I would love everybody to make contributions in terms of new ideas, changes, additions, subtractions. I don't care what it is, but it has to be more than just I'm kind of worried about. We have to actually be specific, actionable. It has to be relevant to this township, and it has to, give me the break or the leg up of at least understanding. Is it really an urgency, or is it just a nice to have? And if it's an urgency, how do I layer that among all of the rest of those things that come in that are labeled urgent? Okay, so I appreciate the feedback and the discussion today very much. I will echo what Chair Mazan said. Excellent job by Director Donaldson and the rest of staff to pull this together. Really, really well done. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I will read the final resolution moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 11:40 a.m. and the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, October 15th, 2025 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thanks very much to everybody, and go and enjoy this beautiful day.